Hey people, so I wanted to talk about the law of free will as talked about in the law of one, and I wanted to link it to the concept of, in these sorts of psychology communities of some various stripe, there's this idea of the best revenge is living well. Now, I don't really agree with that precisely, because that suggests that if your life isn't kind of brilliant after the breakup or whatever it happened to be, that you've somehow failed. But I did want to talk about the law of one, how it talks about free will, and how that might lead us to a vengeance is mine, saith the Lord kind of understanding. So here on the screen in front of you, the red circle is a single individual, and the levels represent the person's movement forward, and I'm trying to describe very big concepts here, ones that I don't completely understand perhaps, but to shorten it, we'll just say it's kind of age in a way. So when you are young, that would be the bottom of the diagram here, and as the red circle moves forward, they increase in life understanding and life challenges and such like that. At this point, say they're at that level of development, the law of free will, from the law of one's perspective, now the law of one is very clear in a very Nietzschean kind of way that we are kind of destined to be who we are. Now, when discussing the law of free will in general, in relation to philosophy, obviously you're going to get some of the people that will just say, oh, you can go out and be whatever you want, whenever you want. A kind of almost narcissistic version of free will. It's like, just get up and go and be the best this or that you can be, and doesn't take into account your natural inclinations or your natural limitations or anything like that. You have full free will, and that's what some people talk about. That's a very kind of law of attraction mindset, I suppose. Contrast this with the Nietzschean view that says you have absolutely no free will. Your tendencies, your abilities, and everything about you is so completely set that even if you do a crime, that was completely predestined in a sense, because you are what you are and there's absolutely nothing you can do to change it. I think a lot of philosophical ideas have set around a similar view to the law of one, actually. So the law of one says things are basically set. You are who you are and you can't change who you are. So one of the things that it says is it is not for a being of third density to pick and choose among its attributes. So if you are naturally a this or that, then that's what you are and you're stuck with it. But they do say that there is a law of free will, and the law of free will is the most important cosmic law that there is. And it basically works like this individual just going about their life, and they have an option to do some things that are very positive. Now, let's say that this person has recently hit puberty and they can have a positive relation to courting and all that kind of thing, and relationships. So they have a long-term partner, say this is just basic. Anything like this is going to sound like moralizing, and I don't really know the correct answers in the grand scheme of things. But let's just say the one on the right is having a long-term partner and valuing that person and not being resentful and being appreciative and all that kind of stuff. And then if something opens up from the free will side here, from the positive side, then the equal energy is available on the negative side. Now, you don't have to do the thing on the negative side, but the opportunity always has to be there. Just like if you're on the negative side, the opportunity always has to be there for a positive option. So let's say the negative option is to dislike your relationship partner and cheat loads, or to have loads of short-term relationships. You always then have the option of the positive side. So it works both ways, and that's how the law of one talks about it. And the author Ayn Rand also had a very interesting take on free will that I wanted to just excerpt here quickly. You know, the full quote for this passage here was way better. When I looked through Google for a little while trying to find the full quote and typing in words from the full quote, I couldn't find it. I can only find this very shortened version here. It reminds me a little bit of how in 1984 the establishment kept putting out dictionaries with fewer and fewer words. But anyway, I'll recite the full quote as well as I can. It said something like, man is a certain animal that has certain predispositions that are given to him to use in the correct way. And then it said, he is precisely what it says here. He's free to evade reality. He is free to unfocus his mind and stumble blindly down any road he pleases, but not free to avoid the abyss he refuses to see. So in that earlier example, I said, say this is a young person, they've started relationships. They are free to go down the route of, say, sleeping with a lot of people or cheating. And we're just saying, I'm just reminding you, we're just saying that's the bad example. But they're not free to, as Ayn Rand says, they're not free to succeed with the bad choice. So if that were to happen and then they get a bad reputation and they run out of town, well, it is what it is. And I think that refers to voting as well. I think if Kamala had won the 2024 election, I think there's a good possibility that America would have gone to war with Russia, because the Democrats were all Russia, 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 and very, very militant against Russia, and very, very into promoting Ukraine. Whereas most of the women that voted for the Democrats didn't really know a great deal about war. They just wanted abortion. But it's like, it's a kind of trick in a way, like all these things are coming in the same package. But it's how free will works. When you're going down the negative side, there is something that comes with it that you didn't necessarily plan on. And probably too with the positive side for a more positive outcome. But life isn't stagnant. Now, the way I look at the world we're living in at the moment, it's kind of like a rising tide and the boats rise with it. Like, things are slowly getting better, and I believe they are. So with the addition of AI, for example, that is giving people a lot more tools all of a sudden, and there's a lot more education about what's really going on in the world. I truly do personally subscribe to a kind of Q narrative where, even though things look as bad as they've ever looked, I think behind the scenes all the negative players, the seriously negative players, have been taken out, and the positive players are kind of guiding the population to slowly unbrainwash, in a sense. So that's where this dark blue image has come here. It's like a tide that is rising. And when you think about this is partly where I'm going with this whole analogy. When you think about the kind of crappy people that you've dealt with, so say a lot of people have had bad situations in workplaces, whatever that might be. But I'm not really talking about like serious issues. Like if you have like a 5-year relationship with a partner and then it goes horribly bad, that's a serious issue. That's not like a workplace dispute. I'm talking about all the kind of crappy people that gang up and gossip and all that kind of stuff. As society moves forward, as we gain information and we start to improve as a society, like I said, I believe that's happening, there are things that happen that increase this energy and move us forward, like with the arrow here. Like, for example, I know it hasn't happened, but say the Epstein client list was released, then all of a sudden people would have new information and they could do with that information what they wanted. They could be positive about it and say, well, how do we move forward in a positive way, and, you know, admit anyone was right that they didn't acknowledge was right earlier. Or they could go completely hysterical and violent and go down the negative path. And that's really all I want to say. There's one more example that I want to bring in. But it's like all the kind of crappy people that you might have dealt with in your past are all subject to this free will thing, this kind of God's plan in a sense. And if they are truly crappy people and you're not misperceiving something, then they will make the same crappy decision. As the opportunity for something positive opens up, they will oftentimes choose the negative thing, not even deliberately, like the left-wing voter that votes on the basis of abortion. I think this is very true with ChatGPT, actually. We've been hearing of various things, like people getting addicted to it in relation to therapy, and people getting psychosis because of it. And I think that's kind of very much one of these things. The introduction of large language models and AIs has increased our sort of energy here, has risen all of the boats, to the extent that if you just needed something technical to be able to do something, if you needed some coding skill or if you needed some images created, then you all of a sudden can do that. And that's the positive side of this. But then you get all the people that haven't really done the inner work to become individuals and whatever else is going on with them. And some of them are sliding down the negative side of it more and joining ChatGPT religions and things like that. And so, yeah, that's all I really wanted to say. I've got another video on this whole area, and this again was a bit of a foundation for that. So thank you for listening.